one of the best kept secrets in the whole wide world for a whole long time is the power of music. You know, a lot of people contend that music can play a significant role in harmony and togetherness and solving problems and making people feel better and do all kinds of phenomenal things. But sometimes we overlook that. And another thing that's often overlooked is the fact that all kinds of music, does this. And so I'm just so happy today. And you all out there in radio, TV, and internet land ought to be happy too. Because we're going to talk about a form of music, a kind of music that's been around a long time and has been proven to be very confident and has the ability. Even when there are issues in our country and in our community, the one common thing that can bring the vaccinated and the anti-vax and the Republicans and the Democrats and the liberals and the conservatives and all of these people who may have different thoughts and different concepts, but remarkably enough is the fact that, even though there are differences oftentimes in individuals and organizations and concepts, music is the thing that brings them together. So I'm more than a little thrilled. I haven't used that word in a long time, and I'm not Michael Jackson either, but that it's appropriate, to talk about Michael Jackson because he too was a musician. To have with me today, none other than Mr. Robert Mcduffie, a world-renowned violinist and the founder and the overseer of the Mcduffie Center at Mercer, and he will talk about that in a minute. And excuse that long introduction, Robert, but I just wanted the people to begin to realize, because we need for people to realize the power of music, and that way they're going to be very interested and very motivated and very ready to be a part of the symphony and the other initiatives that you've got going on. How you doing?
Hello, sir. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you.
So talk a little bit, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself personally, and then we're going to get into some of the initiatives and the most important thing that we want to talk about in just a couple of minutes.
I'd be happy to. I was born and raised in Macon. Went to T.D. Tinsley School as a kid. First of all, I went to Miss Delacroix Kindergarten off Ridge Avenue. Then I was at T.D. Tinsley and lived in the Northwoods area of Macon. Transferred to FPD in the 7th grade and left Macon after my sophomore year in high school to move to New York to go to music school. And even though I physically left Macon when I was 16, Macon never left me. My family still lives in Macon. I have so many close friends and always had Macon on my mind. And when we were able to start this school at Mercer, this institute at Mercer 15 years ago, I just jumped at the chance. But yeah, I had a good upbringing in Macon. I had several musical influences. So I was just kind of a normal kid who was talented in music. My mother saw the talent. She is still living. She is still very much a fixture in Macon. She's 90 years old.
Wow.
She's still a church organist. She has close to 20 piano students. She's in the Morning Music Club. And she still drives her Lincoln Continental around town. and she's a force. She saw that I was talented and made sure that I studied with a teacher who had just moved to Macon, who lived right off Napier Avenue on Radio Drive, 1012 Radio Drive. And I went there every week for lessons. My father was not a musician, but he was a great dancer, and he encouraged me to play a lot of sports. I was on the basketball team at school. I played some golf and some tennis. I was not a great basketball player, but I was on the team. And my mother always was worried that I was going to hurt a finger, and she tried to figure out any kind of excuse to get me off the team. But I had these, so I was kind of a normal kid with a middle class upbringing in Macon. But my musical influences were diverse. I was the son of a church musician. I was the student of a Central European Hungarian who taught me to play like a gypsy. I was obsessed with Southern rock and roll. At that time, the Allman Brothers were alive and well, recording at Capricorn. Their albums were etched in my ear. So I had those different influences just swirling around my head and heart for those formative years in Macon. So I would have to say it was a nice upbringing. I went to New York thinking that I would just graduate, that I would just go for 1 year, my junior year in high school, and then come back to Macon and graduate with all my friends. But once I got up to New York, Alex, I realized that I had to stay if I wanted to be a successful musician. So married to a Southern lady, 35 years, from Atlanta, Georgia. We have 2 children who were raised in New York City, but they went to Southern colleges. And actually, my daughter is living in Atlanta, about to start work at the Southern Center for Human Rights. Wow. And my son is a journalist for ABC News living in Brooklyn, working in Manhattan.
Wow, that is so phenomenal. So, I want you to really address what I said about music being a common language. And then I want you to tie that in, if you would, to what you're doing with Symphony and how you're trying to bridge the cultural gap and how all of us need to be involved in trying to introduce, particularly to individuals who don't realize the power of all kinds of music, particularly classical music, and talk about how you can give classical music a twist,
right,
where it can appeal to different cultures. And then, of course, we want to mention the specific schedule that you have
right,
for the symphony this year.
Well, I agree. Music does bring everybody together. I mean, of course, I'll never forget 9/11 and how the Star Spangled Banner, just that piece of music, brought people to tears. Being all together listening to that. 10 days after 9/11, I was able to get on one of the first flights out of New York. They closed the airports, and I got on one of the first flights out of New York and went to Germany to perform in a town called Bremen. And everybody knew, obviously, what had happened. There was a sense, I just played a regular classical music piece, but my encore was the American national anthem. Everybody knew what had just happened. Every single German citizen stood up and put their hands on their hearts. And just that, just the power of that anthem brought people to tears. That's one example that that comes to mind. I do think music heals. I think music is even more powerful when it's combined with other initiatives like making your actions count and making your words matter. So I think that when those three facets are put together, it's a very powerful formula. And I believe if artists can be great messengers of righteous music, they should be able to be righteous advocates and activists of social causes. And that's kind of where I come from and how I look at the power of music and what music can do, and the fact that it's given me a platform to not only make music, but to make music meaningful and relevant for more people.
Okay, so I understand that part of the specific, take 2 minutes, if you would, and talk about African Americans and classical music and some of the students that you have taught, because oftentimes a lot of people don't realize the connection. There is a connection. You know, it's not just blues and soul and gospel as it relates to the African American community, because, you know, part of our mission today is to generate attendance and participation in these concerts and this series of presentations that you're going to do. But I think that it's important that you, at least just for a minute, let the community know that there are African Americans who play and write and enjoy, you know, classical music.
Oh, we have some fantastic musicians who just happen to be African Americans. And at our school, I'll just briefly talk about the school at Mercer. It's a conservatory. It's a conservatory for very high level students who come to Macon from all over the world to realize their potential. I think this year we may have 7 countries and 13 states represented. We have 4 African Americans in our student body of 26 students. We have and these are some of the best young musicians in the country. My issue here is that we don't have enough African Americans on the stages of classical music. That's a structural issue that we have got to address, and I strongly believe that we have. It may take a generation or two, but we have to lift up the community art schools in urban areas in this country to promote and identify young Black musicians. I was on the board of the Harlem School of the Arts for 10 years when I was in my 30s, because I remember my experience in Macon. I loved my time in Macon, but I'm not happy with everything in Macon. It's still a racially bifurcated town. People like you are doing great work to make things better. But I felt I just felt I needed to be involved with that school. It's a community arts school that welcomes everyone from the community, from the neighborhoods, and the thirst is just incredible, and the talent is fabulous, and the enthusiasm is there. And then we lose them in the 8th grade, and we lose them in the 9th grade. That's a problem. I wish I had not been so busy playing 100 concerts a year and focused more time on that, where we could have turned the Harlem School of the Arts into a feeder school for Juilliard, the school where I went. But if we don't make a real effort and lift up these community art schools, which exist all around the country. You know, I've been speaking to the Redding family for years about their dream of creating a community art school. My own personal, Carla's going to kill me for this. She's on my board, but I was supportive of their efforts to start a charter school, but I think the more meaningful and important work they could do in Macon is to create this community art school. They've already got my students who can be there to help teach. And anyway, we have that issue. But even with that headwind, the conservatories do have incredibly gifted African-American musicians. Classical music, we've mentioned the term classical music. I hate that term, it's not going to change. We have to, as country music has evolved, country music is not what it used to be. Remember back in the days with Porter Wagner and those guys, and with their twang and everything. I mean, country music has become much more inclusive and sophisticated, even in a way. I don't want to diss any art form, but classical music, unfortunately, I think we're stuck with that term. But we can certainly make classical music different, rebrand it in a way. And the only way that I think that we can do that is to reach out to the wider culture. The culture in America shifted, and classical music never kept up. That's our problem. And we have to fix that. And to the extent that I can do something in my hometown of Macon, and with the school that we've created, we're going to do what we can do to address this issue. So we created a new symphony for Macon, but it's not going to be like the old symphony. I mean, I loved the old symphony, but they played basically the same kind of music of dead white European male composers. And it was great. My mother loved it. My mother was the president of the Macon Symphony for many years, so I can't say too many things about the Macon Symphony. The old Macon Symphony, as you know, it folded about 4 or 5 years ago, and 6 years ago. So we decided to create a new orchestra for Macon, consisting of the students of the Mcduffie Center for Strings, 26 string players, combined with the professional wind and brass musicians of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, to come and mentor our students and to create an uber regional orchestra where overnight, Macon, Georgia is going to have the top regional orchestra in the United States of America because of that level. This model has never existed before. And it just excites us because we're not only going to have a new symphony, it's going to be a high level symphony. Okay, so what kind of music are we going to play? I mean, how are we going to be relevant with this new symphony? We're going to keep doing the same thing? No, we cannot do that. We've got to connect with all of Macon. And to that end, we have programmed every concert, which will include musicians of color to be front and center, to perform for their fellow citizens. And I just felt that we all feel that this is just crucial in order for us to be relevant again. People don't, classical music, it's not so important these days. I mean, there are other things to worry about. So why can't we make our symphony matter in the community of Macon? So that's what we're going to do. So opening night, October 4th, we're going to showcase the Redding Foundation young songwriters to perform their music, accompanied by this great symphony orchestra.
Wow.
In November, we're going to bring the Beulah Land Choir to come and do their thing, sing their masterpieces in the way that only they can do, and be accompanied by the Macon-Mercer Symphony Orchestra. In February, we're bringing a young African-American double bass player named Xavier Foley, who is arguably the best young bass player in the country. He's from Marietta. He's also a composer, and he wrote a piece called For Justice and Peace. And he also plays the best Amazing Grace of anybody I've ever heard. So I'm gonna make it conditional and tell him he has to play that for an encore. But he's gonna play that. And then our final concert, we have 4 a year. Our final concert, we're gonna present Bob Lennon, local hip hop artist in Macon, who is quite gifted. And I asked him to write a work in his own style. I just asked him 2 things. I said, I hope you don't mind not using foul language, and make it hopeful, but it's your definition of hopeful. And he has written this fantastic piece, and he's going to be accompanied by the Macon-Mercer Symphony Orchestra.
Wow.
So we're not just paying lip service, Alex. We have to reach out and include all of Macon if we're going to be successful. We have a great product. This is not a box that you check for community pride. This is the real thing. It's high-level music making, and with a real purpose that will matter.
Yeah, I'm looking at your brochure here, and it says a classical revolution from Macon and Mercer. And with that kind of schedule and that kind of setup, it certainly is that. So how can people find out more information about it, and how can they participate?
Well, you've got the brochure in front of you. I'm so unprofessional. I didn't bring my brochure with me today. You've got it. There is a website on there. The tickets are, I don't have the exact ticket price, but they're very inexpensive. And I don't have it on off the top of my head, but I do know they're incredibly inexpensive. And there are free student tickets, which is important for us. We want students to come to this. We're grateful to be funded by the Peyton Anderson Foundation, so we don't have to jack up these ticket prices too much. So we're happy about that. If you just Google Macon-Mercer Symphony, all the information will come up, and you'll be able to find these concerts. But these 4 concerts are going to speak hopefully to all of our citizens down there.
Well, what we will do, we will scroll the website on the show, and I'm looking at the brochure, says mcduffie.mercer.edu. So I'm sure that there will be some information on that. And I just want to plug in and say, I started a record shop almost 50 years ago. And so like you, although it's a different format, I understand and appreciate and advocate for, the music and the role that it can and does play in our lives. So I want to encourage the entire community, everybody from all walks of life, to not only support this initiative, but go to it and enjoy it and push it and promote it, because I think it's absolutely phenomenal, because it serves a lot of purposes. It's not just the sound of the music, but it's the cultural and the togetherness and the unifying role that these concerts are going to play. So I want to encourage everybody to come, and I want to thank you, Robert. I want to thank you for your heart and your willingness to see things as they are, and to suggest how they ought to be, and to come up with a general, understandable, and supportable approach to making life better for our community and for everybody else, and for the young people, yes, and for the culture through music. You got about 2 minutes to do whatever parting statement you would like to.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's hard to follow. I do want to stress to your listeners and your supporters that classical music has always had this stigma. You got all these, basically a bunch of white people on stage wearing white tie and tails and playing music by composers whose names you can't pronounce, and there are certain rules to follow. If you clap in the wrong place, people are going to look at you like you're a country bumpkin. That's not who we are. That's not who we are. If you feel like clapping anytime at this concert, you clap. You just don't boo.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to boo, come backstage afterwards and tell me why you didn't like it. But if you feel like clapping after a movement of a concerto, then please just go ahead and do it. And it doesn't matter if you can't pronounce the name of the composer. It's not about that. It's really about sharing a world-class musical experience with your fellow citizens, and that's what we're excited about with this symphony orchestra.
Okay, we won't be now. The first one is going to be on October the 4th.
We're going to do 4 Monday nights. The first
Right.
one is Monday night, October 4th.
Then November the 22nd, and then February the 14th, and April the 25th.
That's correct.
All on Mondays. So, I mean, again, we encourage everybody, and I can hardly wait, because you had a phenomenal event over at Beulah-Land, 2-3 years ago, combining the reading of the letter from a Birmingham jail with the choir and the violin. So, I mean, it's a very, very enjoyable event, and then we can get lost. And then hopefully that will help us to appreciate the fact that all of us are in this together, and that we can use that music as a vehicle to pull us together and make us communicate with each other, make us more understanding. So I applaud you personally and professionally for what you're doing with this initiative.
Well, that means so much coming from you, and yes, we're just so proud of what we've created here, and we hope that again that all of Macon can come out and see what we put together for the community.
I'm happy to inform you that I've got brochures at my office at 590 DT Walton Way. Susanna Matters has them at Macon Magazine. And then if in fact you want to know more about it, you can just call me and I'll find out how you can get some brochures if you want to put some of these in your office, or if you need to learn more information about it, because I want to serve as a vehicle to make sure that this endeavor is successful. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, interviewing Mr. Robert Mcduffie, world-renowned violinist who's got a local heart. Although he's world-renowned, he still has a local heart and still has that feeling for his hometown. Congratulations, sir. I'll see you at all 4 of them. October the 4th, November the 22nd, Monday, February the 14th, and Monday, April the 20th, all on Monday. All of these will be at the Grand.
All at the Grand Opera House, yes, sir.
They will all be at the Grand. Okay, anything else you want to say before? Oh yeah, I'm interviewing Bob from his home in New York. So give all the New Yorkers my regards. And I'll do the same for the Maconites.
Will do. No, I mean I'm just thrilled that you've embraced this, because you are the Pied Piper of Macon. So I hope that people follow your lead and come to the symphony. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham. Thank you so much to Mr. Robert Mcduffie and the center at Mercer. Have a great day. See you at the concert.